Hello War of the Visions fans, I'm Jackie Fox, and today we're going to be talking about Ramada. This is going to be my big showcase video as I've finally gotten her to 140, and she should be at about 10 reincarnations for most of the testing in this video. So, a little bit reincarnated, but nothing super special. But nothing super special. In this video, I'm going to do a variety of testing for this girl to try to figure out how a variety of teams work against a variety of elements. And instead of just trolling the wotv stats page and looking up all the data that's already available for JP, which I've already done for this character and better teams in another video, I'm instead going to be testing this against my guild, against all of my best teams, and against Arena to get a variety of different outcomes for you to take a look at, broken down by element, and I will break down the stats in total at the end of the guild battle portion of the video. But first, I do want to say these aren't necessarily the strongest teams, and this isn't best indicative of how she's going to do, because really what I should have for her is a full Lance team, and I just don't have that on this account. So what I'm going to be trying to do is maximizing Curse, using just new powerful units, and hoping that I can overwhelm people with damage, and a variety of strategies like that. This is a very strong lightning elemental team. It will have the best stats probably, and the best vision card synergies of anything that we're going to see in this video, because it's an element that I have built out well, and this is my intention in getting her, to further bulk out my lightning, which was a little bit behind. Though from team testing her on JP, I can tell you that her best lightning teams are all going to involve Luciel. So I can't show you that, and I can't show you Pierce, but I do have 4 teams for you to check out, including some new and powerful units, and I have tested her very thoroughly. In fact, if you're afraid of big numbers, don't look at the timestamp, because this is going to be a long one. So pop yourself some popcorn, take a break, use the bathroom, do whatever you need to do, and then come back, press play, and we are going to get into this. So first, let's get started with the guild battle testing. This is from a top 150 guild with 26 members, so a total of 78 stars is the maximum that we are going to potentially have here. Also, just want to point this team out as well. This is a good one. It has just a lot of ways of piercing various types of AoE resistance. It really goes all in on Curse and breaking AoE resistance, or penetrating it outright, or doing both of those things, or getting rid of wider area resistance. It's just really good at dealing large amounts of damage very fast, and it can help shore up Ramada against Earth Elemental teams, because Veritas of the Winds is not only a very good combination with her, but also really great at tearing through Earth. This also has basically the same elements and most of the same characters as probably the best team, which would trade Sephiroth out for Volke for even more Lancer and a unit attack resistance aura as well. Looking at how Ramada did generally across all of the matches in this video, she did the best against Lightning, Dark, and Water. Water is kind of expected. By the way, this is probably the best team for them, and a pretty impressive set of vision cards too. So we'll see how this performs in battle while I talk about things more generally. We also had a pretty good ranking against Earth. Generally, we could beat Earth teams pretty consistently, although at least part of that was because of Veritas of the Heavens, who makes an incredible partner for her. It was probably one of the best partners of all the units that I tested. We're also fairly consistent into Light, but Wind and Fire seem to be a particular weak spot for this character for whatever reason. And it's almost a coin flip into a lot of mixed elemental teams. But we did do well over 100 matches. I tested 4 teams on 3 different maps against an entire high-level guild, but also I tested them against just whomsoever I could find in Arena. And these scores are results of all of that. So looking at the scores in general, One Wing Sephiroth and Mont did the best against the Guild. Veritas of the Heavens and One Wing Sephiroth did pretty well as well. This team was probably the underperformer, but you can see Alaya Alabaster has some really incredible stats here. And Ramadas are at least pretty good. I haven't quite got her figured out yet, I would say, and I need to fill in a spot on this, but she did pretty well. With this particular version of the team tying for last with 57 stars against the Guild with the Mont and Helena variant. As you can see, it still did clear most things. Most of these teams, by the way, are going to have trouble with Kurama's team, as that is really one of the harder ones to beat in Arena now anyways. And I think only one of these teams managed to beat it. It was one of only 2 fire victories that I saw. No, 3. Yeah, it was even 50-50. It was basically a coin flip into fire, whether or not Ramada and her team would be able to win. Which, you know, if you're the betting type, those are not good odds. People don't usually try to bet on outcomes. They're determined by coin flips. As you can see here, while Laya's taking a lot of damage, she has managed to keep herself in the game and draw a lot of their ire. This isn't as big of a deal for Shurika, because she's still got plenty of MP to take the rest of the team and to pin them back so that they can't deal with anybody else. But I think most importantly for this team, one of the things that this team utilizes is this means that even if she moves a bit forward in the way that she just did, while Shurika is definitely within range of damage, and this is a problem because she's probably going to be in range of other characters if she can hit them to a degree. She's not that much longer range than a lot of other characters are in function. They may not be using an ideal attack, but they'll use some sort of AoE skill in their kit to try to hit you. And this can mean that Shurika, even when she gets her immobilized, she's still going to be within range of that character. But when you're supporting her with an amazing healer, then that keeps them away from the healer at the very least. At which point you just have to figure out how to keep Shurika on the field until she can get healed. This was a little bit of a mixed team. This had a actually, Earth isn't the curveball here. So this is almost an all-Earth team versus Lightning. And we're doing pretty good so far. We have all of our units still alive. Mont is paralyzed, so he wasn't able to get the KO on Alaya there. He probably could have. Paralyzed again, allowing us to really beat up on him. The paralysis is worn off, but not in time for him to do much. So, you know, this is kind of the pattern. I wouldn't say necessarily that this of the 4 teams was the one that did best into Earth, but it can actually do pretty well into Earth matchups. I will say though, there could be some accuracy problems into certain Earth matchups, so we're talking about non-evade Earth, probably more primarily. I don't think Ramada is necessarily the most accurate unit, and I'm saying this even though I'm running her with a highly upgraded Dragon's Whisker, which is probably the most accurate single piece of equipment in the game. And yet she still doesn't feel that accurate. In fact, Alaya might be the more accurate unit on this team, which is usually not a good sign. Even though she can be built to be fairly accurate. Like, I think she may have some of the raw accuracy closer to Shurika. But Ramada's asleep at the wheel here. She did manage to 1v1 Helena, but she fell asleep and let the rest of her team get beat. So here's another one. You can see Mont has pretty commanding power and speed in that one. Ramada here is a bit slower, but she does attack pretty hard. This team did not have great synergies and vision cards, so the vision cards is rocking are a little bit generic, but this also means that this team has a pretty good base in unit attack and area attack resistance. It also has decently high attack in general, so this is kind of the all powerhouse team. And this team is actually the team that did the best out of all of them. If you are going to use relatively generic vision cards, look for the vision cards that I mentioned are used here. Death Machine can be a little rough because this vision card came out with Warrior of Light, so you'll need a Final Fantasy 1 re-collaboration or event to be able to pull this card. But it's just a general AoE resistance card. And on a team like this, that's really what you need. It's proving that even though it's a very old card, on teams like this, which are getting really popular, where it's just 3 strong characters of 3 different elements. In fact, that's what we're going up against as well. On teams like this, that AoE resistance is a big deal. You also have an opportunity to pick up a good one that's magically inclined, and for water, that does the same thing as a universal AoE buff. AoE resistance buff. And that is something like Silent Night or something to that effect. Or at least that was the skill on it. What is it? It's the Elsorel and Ildira card from the Winter collaboration. One of the Christmas cards. I think one of the first ones, actually. Really good, really generally useful, but also this means that the 2 rainbow AoE resistance cards you really would want for teams like this are both limited. Although, I think of the 2, maybe you have a better chance of Death Machine showing up, just because winter only comes so many times per year. And they could technically rerun, especially since he's the most untethered from like events, they can rerun him a lot more often. So this team did actually beat the big supergroup team that a lot of them are having trouble with. But it's also one of the few times that one of these teams will beat that. And that just kind of goes to show what I was saying about Gilgamesh. And the biggest thing is if you hit him really, really, really hard, if you just slap through him, you can win. You need to kill him before he kills you. It's a matter of rushing him down in some cases. And for what it's worth, Fire can do a pretty good job of rush. I just still have a really good Fire account, or a really good Fire rush. And, Sephiroth's only going to do so much damage to him. But we are absolutely cleaning up this more like modern Dark team. Just really whooping butt. Oh well. Modernized Mono Dark, still not working. Maybe they had... Well, again, this is just kind of a team that has a lot of overwhelming damage. And as you'll see, Ramada is getting that attack and defense penetration buff in here. So they're all going to be hitting very, very hard and very, very penetratively. Which still isn't enough to get through the HP barrier. But after taking 3 hits, we have finally broke through, and I was starting to do physical damage to Shurika, which means as long as we can hang in here, we can take her out. She also doesn't have her follow-up hit, so she wasn't able to deal with our courage. However, instead of a follow-up hit, Sephiroth just followed her damage up. And then Resnick followed that up with a heal. And now we are in a pretty unwinnable situation. Although they all have gotten in range for the slaughter, and even if we curse them all, I think we still very much lose. Yep. That team just... It's an intersection of elements that this team, or Ramada maybe specifically, just doesn't do well into. Both wind and fire give it some significant troubles. That being said, I think all versions of this team pretty universally have beat Lightning teams. I haven't run into very many Lightning teams that are running Luciel, and I think those teams probably have the best chance against this because they might be able to sustain in a similar way that you just saw with Summer Resnick. But older Resnick just isn't doing it for them. I was hoping that that would work out for them, but I think we always beat that team. All 4 teams could beat that team, unfortunately. I think Luciel might be a little bit of a game changer in that situation, but let's just say that there's still a pretty bad matchup. And for what it's worth, they had a 100% clear rate against Lightning teams across the board in my testing, so it might take a lot to even that matchup out. So maybe surprisingly, she's a little bit of a lightning killer. Although at the same time, to be fair, I think half of the teams that I tested Feaster and Ash and Mond, and he himself is a pretty good lightning killer. This has really high agility for her, 122. Big deal. Also some of the highest attack and some of the highest HP that we've seen. Well, not quite the highest HP, but some of the highest attack. And that's because we have at least a couple of vision cards that work for the whole team, which is going to be really good here. There's at least a good enough synergy between Pierce and Katana to make this kind of thing work. But really, this is also the closest to the ideal team for her, which would probably be all Pierce. And also has the same elemental makeup as what I think is the ideal team for her with Volke. So these 3 do really well together. Even though they weren't quite the best team in my testing, going all in on damage tended to be better. And for what it's worth, my Veritas of the Heavens is not fully reincarnated, but he's pretty close. We also do have a Sky Ripper. So that gives this team so much AoE resistance penetration, AoE resistance destruction, or wider area attack removal. So any way you could block AoE damage specifically, they can penetrate through. While also having, good stats into other penetrations as well, or in the case of, the Pierce characters. There's not a lot of Pierce resistance out here, and nobody's really building for high Pierce resistance, so that might as well be penetration itself. That being said, Ramada is holding them in there, although we're coming very close every turn to, wiping him. We might have been able to take him and get it down to Ramada if we had maybe one more turn. If maybe a curse hadn't gone off and we had kept a friend in, maybe we could have taken that one, but we got it robbed from us for sure. I think that was a pretty close match, though. Either side could have won that, depending on how things really had gone down in that last couple of turns. And in either case, no matter who would have won, they wouldn't have won with a lot. So, for guild battle, you wouldn't be going into your second fight in a great place. It wasn't a good offensive attack, even if it had won, because you really wouldn't be able to do much in your fight, too. Unlike that matchup, into kind of a more modernized light, where we did pretty well. Now this is Day's team. This is the one that did so well in my previous video testing the Veritas. So let's look at this as some additional Veritas testing and see how it do. We have Cursed Cloud, which is kind of irrelevant for him. I don't know that he does a lot of healing. And we are taking a lot of damage all over the board. But wait, they've got plenty of healing. We are doing good damage to Fina, though. And here we come with the LB Retaliation. Will it be enough to overwhelm Fina? Oh, she had re-raise. Dang. And we couldn't quite keep up the high damage there. But it looks like we're getting another turn to do this. Very close on Fina. So that's kind of the danger for that healer is that she has enough damage that squishier units, she has a chance with certain parts of her kit to one-tap them. That was very, very close. And if she had maybe even potentially gotten a crit in some of those scenarios, if she didn't, it could have kind of changed the game, because it's also a lot different if that other character doesn't have Fina there healing them, because then they're dead next turn. Whereas they can kind of sustain indefinitely as long as I can't one-shot Fina, because she's going to heal herself back up to full every time. So we've got a lot of curse on their team. We've got an LB coming in that might change some things up. Certainly gets their CT down, which is good, or at least I think Gilgamesh is immune to CT down tricks, so this doesn't work as well into him. But we have turned off healing for Lucio, which is amazing, if we could have survived through it. So here's what I call the more balanced team. We only have one curse unit, although probably the more effective one. Good offensive stats in general there from Mont. Pretty high magic here, but not the fastest Helena, but she's in the middle. So we're looking at only a slightly faster Ramada, but probably one of the higher attacks and one of the higher HPs for the team. Although this team really doesn't have great vision card support, so it's kind of missing out on some other things, which has made it a little bit unstable. However, it does specifically have some really good matchups in certain cases, especially into like Shurika, into certain parts of Magic, or into teams that just don't really usually think about Magic as a thing. Because while they might be able to deal with these two characters, these two physical characters, or any of the more physical teams, throwing a Magic unit on your team, generally speaking, having a Magic DPS on your team, and even if it's a physical meta, and especially if it's a physical meta, gives you the ability to catch people off guard. And that can help in a lot of matchups. And again, that Reflect can be really good into a bunch of different magical matchups as well. So it can make you better at not being caught off guard. This can be especially important, like to have Helena defending Mont from Shurika. Sure, he's still going to take a lot of damage. He may even die to her attack. But if she also targets Helena, and Helena's got her LB off first, which she likes to get off pretty early, especially on this map, you should be able to reflect that right back in her face. So even if she is taking out Mont, she's also taking out herself. No mages on this team, so that reflect is pointless here, but you see what I mean. Like, as soon as she's getting in range, she's hitting as many people as she can with her LB, so she pretty consistently has reflect coming into a fight, and it really only takes one instance of reflect to ruin Shurika's day. This was an ice team that we beat relatively consistently in testing. It does have Ashen Mont in here as a curveball. This could be bad for Ramada, but Ramada seems to be really good into the other aspects of this team. I mean, just being able to curse really being able to curse any of these characters is great. So they're kind of working from a disadvantage there, potentially. Armor Piercer, off of the Clairvoyant Astrologer, the MR Ramada's vision card. Oh, oops. Seem to have skipped part of that fight. Whoopsie. I think we won that one, though. If it makes you feel any better. Speedy... Oh. Weird. Sorry about that. Okay, getting through these opening buffs. We've already, even in the opening, dealt some damage to Shurika. Shurika hasn't hit us yet, but we have our Reflect. So, at the very least, despite some of those weirdnesses, you are going to see the scenario I described before. I'm not sure exactly what that Isunaga was meant to remove from her. But, as you can see, since she did hit Mont, she did so much damage that Healing Back was able to keep her from dying to her own attacks before the follow-up damage, which also got reflected, hit her. But we were able to follow up and take her out with Helena. Now, the problem is that was by getting through... That was because Helena was able to
being a magical character, just get through that HP barrier, which she would be able to take as a given against all damage on an all-physical team. So Helena allowed us to pass that, and as you'll see, this is the only of the 4 teams that actually was able to clear that team, and they cleared very much because of that Reflect, and because she was able to hit her early and hard with damage because she is a magic character as opposed to being a physical character. Because it was even her follow-up damage coming in for that Rose Blast that was able to clear her out, because I don't think anyone could even get past her barrier there. And it was because she had to be brought back to life, and brought back to life without that barrier. Essentially, this is taking a character to 0 HP to get rid of a barrier is kind of a fun way to go. But she came back to life without the barrier, and that meant that now Ramada, which is plenty capable of doing damage to her, is now able to take her down. Although, on the other hand, the trade-off is this was the first time that we couldn't beat this team, which is pretty powerful. It's another team that I have, though Joom is not, I don't think, reincarnated at all, so I'm not really showing this off or testing it, but it is maybe another way to go, which might give you a little bit more traction into fire, since we had kind of a coin flip matchup.
Now, I tested against many different things, but especially early on, the things I focused on the most were water, ice, earth, and ultimately wind. So that's why I showed you the other 4 elements in the guild battle portion of this video, because personally, I was interested in knowing, this is a lightning team. Lightning teams have been struggling with a lot of modern water teams for a while, so I've been wondering, can this beat water teams, and how does it perform against them? Because it should do really well. Especially with Astrius buffing Watertight Wisdom to give us all extra water resistance. And this team already starts with a fairly stacked amount of water resistance. Now, one thing that has been pretty effective against lightning teams like this one is running a powerful unit that can take care of multiple lightning units himself, and that is Ashen Mont. He can definitely tear through 2 at a time if he needs to. But we have the first KO on this team. We've done pretty good damage to Joom and triggered that heal. She barely did damage to Ramada in return, but Mont brought her down to courage. Luckily before the extra damage hit, but we couldn't take him out before he could take out Ramada. We did get rid of his courage. We are hitting again, so we have follow-up damage as well, which is going to be really helpful for us. But he just healed back a lot, and we're not going to be able to chew through that. So, oof, that is a way to deal with a team like this. So here's a more elementally broad version. We do have a fire unit on this team. And again, the elemental composition of this team is comparable to the best team in the game. So while it won't perform exactly the same, it's going to be a little bit weaker to unit attacks because it doesn't have Volke's aura. It's going to be a little bit weaker in general because I can't build a really strong synergy that also involves Sephiroth very easily. But there are cards that make Katana and Spear work pretty well. And I am lucky enough to have one of those cards. Unfortunately, it's a hollow VC. But it gives them a lot of the things that they need and can help make up for the fact that a lot of the VC spread for this team is a little bit more on the janky side. Although, in terms of jankiness, right? The All Lightning team is number 4, least janky of them all. The AoE resistance team is about the 2nd least janky. And then we get into the other 2 teams where we have Ramada, Ashen Mont, and Sephiroth for just big damage. But also there's a variant where it is Ramada, Ashen Mont, and Helena, because the amount of curse with Sephiroth felt kind of redundant. So I figured if I was going to replace Sephiroth or Ashen Mont, it would actually, in my opinion, be Sephiroth, because She certainly has better opportunities to curse than he does, in that she gets multiple opportunities to curse per game, and he doesn't. So I felt like he was probably the one I wanted to drop, even though it is kind of hard to say that. But there are going to be certain teams that are just kind of made for the meta and better into physical damage, and having Helena on your team is kind of a big deal against those. But also having Helena on your team can provide a really interesting and powerful insurance against Shurika. She's one of the biggest Shurika deterrents I've seen, and it's really, I think, making her way more relevant than she used to be. That reflect is just a big deal. You want her to get that LB off relatively early so that Shurika will eventually try to attack her and just end up one-shotting herself. She is a little bit difficult to one-shot from that because she will heal from doing damage to herself and the other person in the midst of taking damage. So it can be a little bit hard to take her out with this, but it often does work pretty well as a one-shot. So this is my Water Veritas team that I've showed off multiple times now. And this is that Helena variant that I was talking about. And between Helena and Mont, we also have a lot of AoE breaks, but also unit attack resistance breaks. You know, we can go for the path of least resistance if one character is into it, or we can break it down to where both characters benefit offensively. LB from Ramada coming in hot and heavy, reducing some CT there. She did not reduce Elda's CT, so he's going to come in and take out his beloved. But it is going to give, I wouldn't say chain, but a chance to follow that damage up. Speaking of following that damage up, almost enough damage to deal with the re-raise on Veritas of the Waters, but not quite. We are down a unit before them, so that's not a good sign for us. Veritas of the Waters is very low HP, below 100. So she's probably next to go, but they're working on us. They really are. Okay, Mont got a double KO, but Elda had re-raise. Follow-up couldn't deal with that. And Ramada is disabled, thanks to Elda. Lucky break for them, but you know, I think they had good momentum in this fight, and Ramada just really wasn't wiping them as effectively as she needed to. She did do some good work and cause at least Veritas of the Waters to go down, and she probably would have done more if she hadn't been shut down entirely by Elda. But this is a pretty tough position for Mont to defend in. All that being said, we did pretty good work on this team. Okay, one more versus the AoE team. And I am going to, and a lot of times I'm going to do this on this map, after you've already seen the opening for this map a number of times, you don't really need to see it again, at least at low speed. So I'm going to speed up into a cutscene like this, so that you can kind of just get to the action. See, here we are. They're already facing off. Elda is cursed, and he also tanked through all of the damage from the other side. He's dealing damage back himself, but he can't heal off of his self-heal. Ooh, big AoE damage. Big AoE breaks are coming. Also, dropping 15 AP off of them too. Because of Curse, re-raise could not bring him back to life. And we're really putting in the pressure. So now is the time where they could begin to recover, but we've kind of got them on the ropes, and now we've got their CT down. Wasn't enough to keep June from taking her turn, but it was definitely enough to wombo combo Veritas of the Waters, and June is now in a pretty bad position. Also, we didn't get to see that re-raise on her in the last fight, but she was, in addition to having a superior position to Mont, rocking re-raise. This map especially has been really good. This previous map that we were on, especially, and this is the current arena map, has been really good for letting teams build up into higher power by giving them 2 and 3 buff turns before they enter the fray, depending on their movement. Maybe even more, or, 2. But 2 is kind of what we expect from most maps, so being able to get that third one in there can really build you up. It can also mean you don't quite have as much time in the battle with whatever that first buff is, that buddy buff, usually. That tends to be what the AI prioritizes. So from here we're going to be looking at Earth teams, and I've fought a lot of Earth. And as you can see, Veritas of the Winds is kind of making it work up front, but he's eaten through a lot of damage already. Now he's down. Sephiroth is having some trouble, but he has cursed Mont. But now he's down. Can she take Mont? Oh no. Oh no, just a turn behind. Oh no, wait. My courage hadn't procced yet. Oh wow. He took her down to really low HP without proccing courage. I thought we were a turn behind on that clock, but we just barely got him there. Good deal. So as you can see, she doesn't do great into Earth, but Veritas of the Winds especially is a bit of an equalizer. And he can really help this matchup work out. For this one, we're seeing a lot more strike, but they have an MR unit up front. MR Monk Etra. She didn't survive very long. 2P also did not make it very far. Just kind of ran into Veritas of the Winds, and he functioned as an absolute brick wall. Sephiroth has cursed Mont, and we are laying in the damage. We've got him down to courage. And no one's really broken through kind of our initial barriers, so we're still not taking much damage as we reach him. Okay, so this team is going to have a Jum. That might give them better chances on Sephiroth. And maybe worse chances against Ramada. Probably ultimately a wash. But it does mean that we only have to deal with 2 Earth units here. I've already got a double curse from Sephiroth, so this team is already looking pretty cursed. And that can be a big deal for Jum specifically. We've already denied her 1 heal, as it is. We have Dialdo down. We're not taking too bad a damage, but Sephiroth is really starting to weaken. Oh, yes. Okay, so Ramada got some good damage in from range and healed back up enough to be able to take that next hit. Mont is at courage, but healed back. We have extra attack, yeah, 1 extra AP. Some extra attack to bring him down, and an extra unit to follow that up for Fatal. A big part of this particular wing of the testing is going to be maybe even more testing the partnership with Veritas of the Winds. Again, I think he's one of her strongest partners in general. There are maybe other Lance units that get used with her, but I think he's one of the most powerful, in part because his element just really helps counter some of his weaknesses. Like, we're seeing him get out in front here and kind of, with minimal effectiveness, be able to keep a lot of the Earth damage from even getting to Ramada before he gets there. We do have her down to courage. She did survive the follow-up hit, though, and he did not survive her retaliation. So he actually managed to get that one without losing any units, even though her Ramada ended with 1 AP. Although this is a completely magic-centric Earth team, maybe not the best. I want to say give Kilfei a chance. She's probably better for slash resistance, so 2 pierce units on this team are going to be a little bit of a problem for her, I think. not exactly an optimal condition for her. She does also have the ability to heal back her HP, but she's not going to have that with Curse, and now she's down. Veritas of the Winds has entered the fray front and center, helping him get to the front lines a little bit faster on this map. Had time to proc Veritas of the Earth's Courage off of his TMR. And pretty easily ended the rest of the team. Alright. So, this is going to be an Earth team featuring Strike with Ashen Mont. I've showed this team before. Actually, no, I haven't. Showed the... was it full strike? I don't know. Maybe I have shown this team before. However, I definitely have not shown it with a 140 Veritas of the Earth. Already able to tank through Veritas of the Winds. Wasn't able to tank through that second hit entirely, though. At least in terms of that initial barrier. So he is taking damage. He is also now cursed, as is Mont. That's a pretty big deal for both of those characters. Especially with all of the HP restore on this team. I mean, in addition to what is natural for these characters, I've also got them HP drain, thanks to Uriel's TMR. Alright, Monsal B is here to do some damage, maybe save the day. We did take out Ramada. We have not really managed to do much damage to the other two characters on this team, and Veritas of the Winds is going to be a real steep hurdle to overcome. Couraged up. But they're down. Uriel, what can you do? Not much. As expected. And Uriel's down. More Earth. This one being a little bit more of a classic or like FF8 collaboration era team. I talked a lot about this team and its ability to use AP efficiency and its ability to use AP denial to really put you on an uneven playing field with your opponents in terms of AP, especially if they rely on AP regeneration. So we just saw Mont not able to get his AP restore off here. One of the reasons why I think that this is an interesting matchup especially is that we're getting Helena into the fray. So previously I've really been showing you Veritas of the Winds as a way of countering Earth, but Earth is also heavily more defensively based than it is anti-magically based. So we have a lot of opportunities here to hit a bit harder with Helena than maybe the opposite team would be expecting. So she kind of comes here as a damage type curveball. But we are representing 3 damage types as well, so in terms of just general resistance-based strategies, it's going to be hard to resist for any character to resist the entirety of the team. Somebody's going to be doing bonus damage here. Ramada managed to use Courage to survive the follow-up attack. We have some long-range damage coming from Renoa, who I think sees the end of Ashen Mont coming. Now it's her turn to bring upon us the apocalypse. What can she do here? Maybe some poison would be good, but I think it's a little late for chip damage to save the fight, and she did not land poison on anyone. She did manage to finish off Bradley, though. What's she doing? Is this a twin strike, maybe? We will not find out. Because she's gone. Alright, so let's take the same team. As we know, at least in one point in recent wotv history, this was a top tier Earth team. Maybe a little bit dated at the moment. And play it up against our AoE penetration team. And also test it out against Veritas of the Winds. This is, by the way, I think, fully reincarnated Veritas of the Winds. Pretty sure. I know one of... No, wait. No. He's actually a little bit short of full reincarnation. My bad. I miscalculated, got a little impatient on how I spent his shards for the Guardian's Crystal. But that should be very easy to rectify as soon as the next Legendary Reliquaries installment comes out. Should be easy to get more than enough to finish off the last reincarnation or two. I think I need about 22 medals to finish the guy off. As you can see, though, this team did not do nearly as well. And one thing I want to point out about times that you're going to see this map in the PvP section of this video, as I was doing this in free match, I was able to choose the map conditions. And a big deal for Ramada is going to be AoE resistance penetration. So I want to emphasize that by playing into a 30 AoE resistance buff across the board in my matches with testing Ramada here on this map. And the reason, again, that I'm doing that is just to see if that helps her perform against some of these other characters in a better way. Like, if we can see other people being held back by that. Now, at least in the Earth section of the video, we're not going to see a lot of that. Because, at least for Ashen Mont, who tends to be the backbone of basically any modern Earth team, he's really, really dead set and focused on unit attack resistance. Someone more like Bradley, he's going to be focused more on AoE resistance. However, his damage has been kind of questionable for a while. So if you just see him kind of underperforming, it's not that crazy of a thing. So here we're going to break some CT, some agility, some other things, really slow him down. Here comes the big attack. Done pretty heavy damage to our front lines. Bradley is at courage and dodging. He did not dodge the follow-up from Sephiroth. But it looks like we have a situation. Well, he does have re-raise. Did get followed up, but did manage to survive. Re-raise gave him just enough health to survive the follow-up hit. Mont is cursed. He hit his backer really hard. And I guess we lost that one, but I guess it cut a little early. Mont having that much of an advantage on us at that point is really a problem if Ramada is the last person left on the field. But if Veritas of the Winds is so important to this team, and also we're using a fire unit, how are we going to play into combinations of water and ice, or just ice itself? Well, for one, Oldoa is a little bit heavier in unit attack resistance, so AoE resistance could be a way to power through this. However, Water and Ice has a lot of synergy and is a really potent combo. So as you can see here, we managed to curse the whole team, which is a good start. It really turns off a lot of the things that they're doing, but we couldn't manage to power through them quickly enough. We were doing a good job, we were just maybe a turn or so behind. This is going to be more of a pure ice team. We're going to see Joom here replaced by Jaden the Celebrated. And Jaden the Celebrated is really good into unit attack, which means that, you know, like Oldoa, he has a good synergy with Oldoa. He's good against people like Ash and Mont, who are really focused on unit attack damage. Also, physical units, he has a big physical barrier, so he's going to hold us off for a while with that. And Sephiroth being our fire unit, he's not really going to do the most damage because he's not necessarily a DPS, as he's more of a technical unit. And this is really going to mean that he has a very hard time breaking through Jaden's physical barrier, and so is Veritas of the Heavens. But once you're through it, you're through it. It looks like we've managed to progress into the... Oh. So one-on-one, I think they both have re-raise. No, we did not have re-raise anymore. RIP. Just barely lost that one. But, you know, another emphasis to the power of Veritas of the Winds on that team, that kind of holding him back like this can be a pretty big problem for you. So what happens if we run a more neutral setup where we have one unit with an advantage over Ice and everyone else being more neutral, where we have no disadvantage? The last fight was pretty close, so it seems like we should be able to win this one. And they have some suboptimal units here. They had I think Oldo is a much better tank than Snow. But as you can see, Jaden can definitely take a lot of hits from a fully physical team. This is another way that unit like Helena could be a curveball. Really good example of how she's a curveball is against Shurika. Shurika, like Jaden, also has that HP barrier that can stop damage, but she has no such barrier against magical damage, so Helena can just start doing damage to her before physical units can, and really put her in danger in times when physical units might not even be able to do damage to her. But in addition to that, there's the Reflect to just make Shurika one-hit herself. That's glorious. Getting a lot of follow-up damage here from Gilgamesh. We have our follow-up heal. We almost have Aldoa out. Can we hit them both? Yes, we can. So we're applying some damage to A2. Even more damage to A2 from Mont. He's in the middle. Follow-up damage hit. Did not hit Gilgamesh because he did not take damage from the attack. But we should be through his barrier and chipping away. Wow, the follow-up hit did a lot of damage. And from distance, Sephiroth is following up. Big slash chain between those two. Since, I guess, Ramada was unconscious and unable to break it with her piercing damage. But really, really big damage there between the two of them. That Telluric Fury just really ramped into some big power against Gilgamesh. And he can be difficult to beat, but teams like that, or teams like some of the ones I'm using here, while they may not have, you know, the best synergies, and that's definitely going to hold them back in some cases. Although, again, I think because of just one card, basically, Katana and Spear have such a good synergy, or at least a good basis for a team, that this works a little bit better than you would think. But one of the keys for a lot of these teams and the ways that they're going to beat other teams is by overwhelming them, just hitting them really hard from every direction they possibly can, while trying to prevent the methods that they have from slowing that process down. You know, this is like burn with healing prevention. So we're trying to rip through the other team, but also that's going to leave us with a little less protection. And one of the reasons that I say this is because in all my testing of Ramada, she's glassy. She is a glass cannon type character. Sure, she does have courage, but that's basically bog standard at this point. It's also, of the two things that she could have like that, you know, you don't survive a follow-up hit with courage. Any amount of damage will take you down, but as we've seen already a number of times in this video, if you have re-raise, there is a potential with high enough HP that you can come back with enough HP to survive the follow-up hit. But she also doesn't really have HP barriers or anything like Shurika does. Shurika already feels enough like a glass cannon in the right matchups. Again, bad matchup into Helena the Black Rose specifically, who can take her out pretty quickly. Bad matchup into a lot of very strong magic units. As a wind unit, Gilgamesh the Scourgebreaker is a really good example of a bad matchup for Shurika. But at least she does have that HP barrier, and she does have a lot of ways of reducing other people's damage. But Ramada doesn't really get very much of that. I mean, she is actually fairly resistant into magic, but magic isn't necessarily what water is doing right now. Magic isn't really... You know, that can make her good into certain things with other people. I would imagine, especially the unit attack resistance aura, that Volke could really enable some tanking and some durability against Gilgamesh that she could abuse. And maybe she could reduce his damage enough that she could take that and she could, you know, really counter him. It would be especially strong if she could curse them, because, you know, then you don't have to deal with any of the annoying self-healing that Gilgamesh does. But outside of those matchups, and at least broadly in a more physical meta, she often just doesn't survive particularly well once she starts taking damage. So really the best strategy that I've found for her, not having the most perfectly optimal teams, is to just try to do as much damage as quickly as possible to as many people as possible. And teams like this with very high power and very high ways of breaking through people's defenses seem to be the best way to keep her safe, because, you know, if she's threatened by 3 units, they can easily come together and do enough damage if they can all hit her to take her down, you know? But if it's just 1 or 2 units, she has more and more chances of survival. And if she can survive to get another turn because she has self-healing or HP absorb, then she might be able to survive further into the match. And as that gets more and more uneven, you know, that's great for her. It's easy to look at her and like compare her to Jum, especially since both characters seem to have good innate resistances to magic. But generally speaking, I would say Jum has very high survivability, even in non-magical scenarios. And I just don't think that... Ramada can really boast that. So while it's pretty easy for Jum to maybe take damage 2 or 3 different ways and survive that from even below full health and then attack and do a lot of damage and heal back, you know, in theory Ramada could do that too. The problem is that if multiple people hit her, she won't make it to that point where she can heal back. And we've seen that a number of times throughout this video. It's really been kind of a common theme. So this is going to be one of our, I think our only like predominantly light matchup, and it's going to run a Jum as well. And this is versus our full lightning team, so we're trying our best to take that Jum. We'll see how much light can be a curveball to that. Already it's looking pretty good for them, but we did manage to get rid of... Oh, 2 characters already? Cloud is pretty tough. This is Greatsword versus Greatsword. Oh, how did they equip him? He is very evasive. We can't hit him with anything. Oh, that's ridiculous. Okay, well that's a shame. This is one of 2 dark matchups that I had for this portion of the video. I don't know why, but I've been seeing a lot of Dark Fina lately. Also, there's another one that I've been seeing a lot lately that was a little surprising to me. Hio. I've been seeing a lot of Hio. On Fire, on Greatsword, mainly. But I've been seeing a lot of Hio in PvP in the last little while. We're doing pretty good, but they did survive that through re-raise. We are pretty critical. And I think we're just a turn... Oh, no, we're more than a turn behind because he's fully healed. Okay, we lost that one. Hoo-hoo. Okay, really good opening buffs. Now, my whole team has a lot of self-healing. Mont through his sword and his threshold heal. Sephiroth through a lot of his kit, having absorb HP. Ramada just through her absorb HP buff. We got Curse onto their re-raise unit, so that helped us survive that. We've also, on the other side of the map, Curse Cypher, and managed to take him out in a 1v1 with Ramada. Actually, she made him look like a chump there. Okay. We got Vivi down and re-raised because we couldn't curse him, but Ramada charged from the other side of the map and decided to KO him too. What a boss. She really looked good in that fight. So another thing that I tested, using a lot of Ashe and Mont on this team at least, I wanted to see how well it did in to win. So I tested it against quite the variety of win teams. Most of them aiming for teams that had Shuriken. So this is a team that we talked about in my Shuriken video, and a team that I tested in my Shuriken video that did... No, wait, hold on. No, I didn't test this team. This was very close to a team that I tested for the Veritas of the Winds video that did incredibly well on offense. And surprisingly, they have done really well at offending my team so far. Wow. 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 Confusion and courage, and I'm down. I didn't have a chance against him. Good lord. Team ripped. Okay, so here's the, like, classic win team. Really playing the greatest hits of Wind here. Although, I gotta say, the only unit that isn't usable in modern compositions here has got to be original Joom. Newer Joom is everywhere, but Glaciella can be really powerful. In fact, Glaciella Flagbearer is a good third for a team with Ramada, Veritas of the Heavens, and Glaciella. That can also be a really good team on defense for you. Putting Ramada up front to kind of bait in all of those Earth teams, and then just using Veritas of the Heavens and Glaciella to tear them apart with piercing damage. Also, you have the opportunity to use really powerful vision cards if you have the Pierce VCs, or the Spear VCs rather, to really pull that off. That can be one of the maximum power builds, at least as far as Ramada is concerned. And again, these other units aren't bad at all. I would say really the unit that lets that particular team down at this point is original Joom. So here's a win team with some fire. That has become common, all the rage these days. Having either 2 fire units and 1 wind unit, or 2 wind units and 1 fire units. They've been very popular elemental combinations. At least with the Shuriken bonus in Arena, but I've seen it more in other places as well. This is also a bait team. You run your wind... Well, no, this isn't the bait team. But if you were to run a wind unit, like Shuriken, up front, and then something like Sephiroth, and another potent fire unit, maybe Sephiroth and Soul, then you could run a pretty good defensive team that might be able to bait in particularly powerful ice teams. Maybe this is even a really good place for Hio. And maybe this is one of the reasons why Hio is kind of having a bit of a resurgence in popularity, is that one of his true focuses as a character is to build his ice resistance incredibly high. I mean, he has that flaming passion, or burning heat drive. So he can be really ice resistant, and that can make him potentially pretty powerful into Gilgamesh, especially with the right support for that. It can be a little bit of an issue. Lastwall actually can kind of screw with that, but that does make him, I guess, stronger in a meta where Gilgamesh is as powerful as he is. Though, as you can see, we've had some trouble getting through this team, at least this composition has. And part of it is that to really do a lot of damage here, we need Mont to be able to slap people hard. And having this many wind units on team can really hold him back from doing that. So let's look at what the full wind version of that team looks like by swapping Sephiroth out for Veritas of the Winds. So if it was bad to have 2 wind units versus this version of this team, because it really short-circuited Mont. Although, we have also switched out one of our units, I believe for Helena. So we'll see how Helena plays into this. It shouldn't be great. This is maybe a weakened matchup for another reason, in that Dario is really going to be able to deal with a lot of Helena's shenanigans, or at least blunt the force of her shenanigans. So that's kind of another more bad matchup for a team combo like this, in that I don't think Ramada is probably going to be the one of them, of the 3 of them, that plays best into this team. So breaking their CT, still haven't managed to damage these other 2 very much. I guess this means that we've broken through... No. Yep, yeah, I guess we have broken through the barrier for Shurika. So Shurika's down now. And Dario's confused. You know what? I think actually we might have this one. We did lose Mont. But, And as predicted, we're having a lot of trouble taking Dario down. Helena can't do a lot to that. And he can heal back quite quickly. Not quite as much as Ramada can deal in damage. Okay, maybe a little bit more sometimes. But if I had just one more unit following that up with damage, we could end this fight. And I guess we did end it with a victory because we had more HP, but we should have been able to clear that. And Helena not being able to really mess with Dario is a big reason why we weren't able to deal with that. Ramada is taking her place in the back, coming up to the front, not doing anything. Should put her up a little bit in turn order. Want unleashing the damage, but not doing a whole lot. It's going to be another team with a lot of wind that's going to be a problem for. Oh, yes, it was quite a problem for him, and this is probably Dario following it up. Oh, well, we didn't get the KO. They didn't get the KO. We didn't get a heal back, but we are berserked. So not good things for Mont. Now we're down. Sephiroth had the good follow-up. Surprisingly, although maybe we had difficulty hitting him. Ooh, that was a very opportunely timed curse. Shurika is still doing big damage to the field. Ramada had the range and power to take her down. We are only just ahead of them, though. We could still lose this, although their Sephiroth is now out of HP and without a re-raise. So we got him. It was a little bit of a close call, though. Wind is a pretty unsteady matchup for most variations of this team, but part of that is because most of the things that I've tested here don't have the strongest synergies. And also, I don't think I really tested the one that had one of the better synergies. And an all-wind team is going to be able to utilize all-wind cards to really almost get the maximum buffs you can out of the VC system. It's a very easy to build for high power with mono elemental teams. So let me try countering that and kind of evening the playing field by playing my mono lightning team into my mono wind. Astria is coming out first with damage, not doing a whole lot. Stag Impact didn't do a whole lot either. Shurika, though, has plenty of damage. Locking Alaya in place, although I think she can Stag Impact all of them without moving, so that may not be the worst thing for her. However, she is nearly KO'd, so she may not get the opportunity to do that. Dario flexing that heal back ability. And Shurika's follow-up, taking out Ramada. Now we're down to just Astria's, and it's not working for us. Yeah. So, like I said, our matchup, almost no matter how you look at it, into wind is just kind of bad. Of all the elements that I tested, even Earth, for some reason, wind seemed to be one of the ones that we maybe had the most trouble with. Strange, right? And there's just, it doesn't really feel like there should be a reason why this is the case. But these characters are very good, and perhaps it's also an indication that, at least if you aren't building a Luciel Lightning team, or maybe a Volke Pierce team, that maybe one of the key partners you should be considering is Ash and Mont. I mean, if they have a lot of the same weaknesses, but have complementary strengths, then why not run them together? Anyways, they're just stunting on us now. They've killed off all the team, disabled Ramada, made her watch, and then poked her to death. So, from there comes, I think we have 2 lightning matches and a fire match. Again, as I said in the guild battle portion, these were the elements that I didn't see the most of for this. So. So here's a Lightning Greatsword team, once again with Hio. Okay, we've ripped through them pretty well so far. Astrius has managed to do some pretty good damage to us, though. But it looks like we're hitting him pretty hard, too, for the most part. So, relatively easy win. And I would say most versions of this team probably do great into Lightning, but that aforementioned strong synergy with Ash and Mont also shores this team up quite a bit into Lightning. But how is our matchup into Fire? And this might even more accurately be seen as a Katana team. as it only has 2 fire units, but it does have 3 katana units. Also, some follow-up damage here from Oberon. It's not entirely a new trend. It did start with Noctis. Oberon is relatively strong as a follow-up damage character. That's why you really can't let him have the AP to fully go off, much like Ash and Mont. Okay, so look at the AoE breaking team versus fire. This team has a little bit of evasion on it. Once again, Hio, as he hasn't been popular lately. Maybe he recently got an upgrade and I just haven't noticed. Because if he got an upgrade, he might be a bonus unit and some stuff. So if he's a bonus, that would explain why more people are using him. Alright, first damage, not a lot. Couldn't hit one unit, unfortunately. Couldn't do much damage to the other, but he's good versus physical. Oh man, but they're doing a lot. Time to slaughter them. Will that help? Yes, quite a bit, actually. They didn't have much they could do about that slaughter. And we got another LB coming. Here's the Celestial Meteor Lance. And they all died cursed. See, this is what I was talking about with them potentially being overwhelming and that being probably one of the best positions or scenarios for Ramada in general. Like, the faster the fight ends, the less trouble she's in, generally speaking. So she can be a little bit of a rushy type unit. So from here on out, because there are a lot of teams that do not rely on elemental synergy whatsoever, let's look at some of those teams. This one I thought was pretty interesting, but I was kind of surprised at it not doing particularly well. That being said, Cypher really showing off his power here. Another greatsword team, another Hio. Like I said, I'm seeing a lot of Hio. Alright. We're lining up. Ooh. Wow. He did a lot of damage. And Ramada is down before she could do anything, which is a big win for them, frankly. Oh, is Lai out of AP? What in the world? We might end this without taking anybody out. This would be a really... Well, if Astrius could have made it around a little bit longer, his courage removal would have been really helpful against that team, but we just didn't do well against it in general. Let's try the AoE resistance team against a variation on Greatsword that's going to include Shurika. This is going to maybe spread the vision card base a little bit, maybe be suboptimal for some units on the team, but at the same time, it's a good way of covering your bases if you're an all-physical team to include one of the best magical damage dealing units. Couldn't get any damage on Shurika there because of her HP barrier, but did manage to curse her and Cloud. Really wanted the curse to land on June. Cloud doesn't have much heal back ability. But he's down now. Of course, so is Ramada. Speaking of being down, Veritas of the Winds has come down from the heavens. Sorry, Veritas of the Heavens has come down from the winds. Now we are ganging up on June. So, yeah, we powered through that, even though I think everyone ran out of AP and it devolved into a slap fight around the end. This is a really powerful team. This is actually one that I'm using in Arena right now after my last premiere. It was promoted to me that I use this team particularly against units like Sephiroth, Shurika, and Gilgamesh. Now, Gilgamesh can be a little bit of a fraught matchup for this, I think. Sephiroth is not a big deal, though. Both Oldoa and Shurika can pretty much shrug off a lot of his attacks. Even with the elemental advantage, he's just not as good into... I mean, she's very good into physical, and he can have some trouble with that. And then Shurika into Helena, as I mentioned before in this video, is just hilariously rough for her. But this team is also, you know, because of that, it has a good matchup against magical teams, having a good advantage against the strongest magical unit, and then, you know, an advantage that works against a lot of other magical units. But also being decent into physical, a lot of them are also good into physical. So it's a team that can deal with a lot of different things. Okay, damage is coming. Shurika's not dealing a lot here, but this is going to be another case of Shurika and Greatsword. June's doing a lot of damage here. So these are probably all Greatsword VCs, basically. Maybe some Black Mage among them, but she's really not doing much damage to us compared to how powerful and overwhelming the Greatsword units here are. This is definitely a person who had a top-tier Greatsword team who subbed in Shurika for meta reasons, or just to get the bonus. Definitely a great Greatsword team. Moving on to the new map, we're gonna face off against the team I just shouted out as well. They do pretty good on this map because there's a lot of time for them to set up effectively. At the same time, though, we also have a Helena, and they do also have a Shurika. So we have the potential to use some tech against them that they use against other Magic teams as well, since we're both rocking the Helena. This should be a pretty interesting matchup. Although my team has decided to abdicate the field to just chill in the back row, giving each other buffs. The opposing team is almost out of things to do, waiting on us to show up to the front lines. But we are very well buffed as we are arriving, and their tank is coming out to meet us. Gonna raise her resistances and do some damage and some breaking to Mont. Their Helena came in and put our Helena to sleep. So that's gonna be some trouble for us. But now they have two characters that are well in Ramada's range, but also now we have two characters that are well in Shurika's range. Though, as you can see, in a lot of cases, Ramada actually takes damage pretty well into magical opponents. If we can get the LB off here, no, she's not using it. That could have probably been a win. Taking Shurika's damage well here again. Almost got their tank down. Tank is down. Okay, it's a 2v1. We've gotten through the HP barrier for Shurika. We are both pinned down, but Ramada not only can attack from that range, she can curse from that range. Let's look at the same team versus a variation of units here. We're going to be looking at the all physical team. So these are all modern physical units, all very strong. This is kind of the meme team, the I'm just going to play new units and win team. We're getting a really good setup here, by the way. And one of the things that this team could do better, it's particularly important in their Ashen Mont matchup. It's not always important. So it's something that can be overlooked, and it has its own problems and drawbacks and stuff, right? But on a map like this especially, I think you can get away with having a character use Blade Stream because you have more buff time to make up for it. So long as you don't put them too close to the fray, if you move them kind of over to the side in their starting position somehow, they shouldn't get too out in front. So why is it important to shut off their AP other than normal reasons? Why do I think that's so important against Ashen Mont for mages? Will Ashen Mont manages, when he has AP regen active, to have a much higher rate of silencing people. So unless these mages have full silence resistance or high enough silence, I mean, even the amount of silence resistance that would normally get you through would not necessarily be enough here because of that boost. It doesn't mean he can't silence you without AP regen, it just means that your normal countermeasures will be effective enough if you can keep him from getting AP regen. Because this, as you can see, is a pretty close match. The problem is, for several turns, several of my units didn't do anything. But also, the obvious, 2 out of 3 of these characters using AP regen. Which just makes it a very good strategic opportunity for me to trade one of my buffs for basically 2 of theirs. So we're going to do this with Oldoa here. And as you can see, she's going to kind of get out in front because of that. She doesn't have any of her normal buffs up, but she should have one more turn to get things going. And that's a pretty good one for her to have active, because now she's going to be in the thick of things. Almost trying to get the sleep, already doing damage. I wonder if Shuriken can hit multiple characters. I don't think so. It's just Sephiroth, and not a lot of damage there. Mont is going to be woken from his slumber with a lot of debuffs. Oldoa is going to become more damage resistant. Heal back just a bit. Mont is going to counterattack and heal back just a bit himself. Same deal for Ramada. CT down on one of their closer units too. Helena has moved into the danger zone and got slaughtered, cursed, and her re-raise failed on her because of the curse. Shurika, though, is now in range. Oldoa is not down yet. Shurika has managed to take down Mont. So we are left with Sephiroth, Shurika. We're both now taking damage. I'm sorry, Sephiroth and Ramada are now both taking damage from Shurika. I'm not even sure we had a chance to damage Shurika before she could take us out there, coming down to Sephiroth. He does not do physical damage fast enough, especially against a character that has an HP barrier like that. Okay, so we are the Katana team we're up against this time, and we are drawing to a close to this video, or at least a close to my commentary. If you have appreciated it, this has helped you understand how certain units might perform, helped you get to know this brand new map, or helped you understand some of these matchups, or even just inspired you to try something new for yourself. Maybe a new strategy or something like that. Then the way to show your appreciation and the free-to-play option for YouTube is to like and subscribe. You can also leave a comment. That always helps with engagement. YouTube loves it. They love to see you engaging. But also it's helpful for building community. Games like this need community. So talk to your comrades down there in the comments and make them feel a part of the community. Often they're down there asking questions, and I don't always have the time to answer. So if you know the answer, be a help to these folks. Be a force for good in the world. We will appreciate you for it. Speaking of appreciation, though, if you want to show your appreciation, click the link in the description to see all corners of the Jackie Fox Media universe, including my alternate YouTube channel, my podcast as well, including my books. It even happens while we sleep. The hardcover version is now on sale for only $15. Pick that up while you can. It's about as low as I can afford to get it and still make any money back from it. So grab that while you can. But also you could support the channel by donating on Ko-Fi, whatever, however you want to pronounce that. Both of they make sense. Their logo is a coffee cup. Or Patreon, either in a one-time donation or recurring donations. I think both are possible on both platforms here in 2024. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.